Hello and welcome to a special edition of the 11th OVC. Here we actually are on site at Fort Larned, and I'll introduce Ben Long. What's your actual position here?
Park Ranger.
Park Ranger at Fort Larned. So, and you've been working here for how long?
Going on 3 years.
3 years. So why we're here, we're going to be talking about the history of Fort Larned, some of the unique aspects that this location has to offer, which is honestly, bar none, if you combine everything, one of the best Western forts that I've been to. I mean, this place is awesome. And so what we're going to do is kind of talk about it, but kind of introduce it real quick. We're here for a living history that we did today and yesterday. We'll do a little bit tomorrow as well. And something that we haven't done here at the fort for, it's been since COVID for a while. It's been more, years.
Before my time.
Yeah, right. So, we were able to actually help host one of the first big events since then, and I think it's a relative success based on the numbers.
Yeah, no, we had our unveiling of our new exhibits last year, but we had to suppress it a little because of COVID rules. Yeah. But yeah, this is the first sort of standalone big living history event that I've been able to see here.
So going into the fort itself, what draws you or drew you to Fort Larned? I guess versus anything else. Yeah,
so for a long time, it's been my career goal to be a park ranger. And so long ago, it was the advice was given to me to take the first permanent position that came my way.
Smart decision.
Which happened to be Fort Larned. And at first I was like, Kansas? Do I really want to work there?
Kansas.
But then I got here, and I really, one thing that was sort of beneficial with COVID is it gave me more chance to do more research and really dive into the story of Fort Larned and really fall in love with the story that's here.
Let's actually get into that then. As far as the history, the story, other than the normal spiel that we can get from the website, if it was founded in October of 59, it went up into 67 or 68? No, 77, 78.
78.
78. See?
Getting it.
I'm getting it.
Yeah.
It's been a couple days. 78. So really just shy of 20 years of history. And there's other forts out there that have a significantly longer history. But what do you think is the neat stories or the neat history that, like you said, made you kind of fall in love with the location?
Yeah, and well, to sort of cap up, we do have different eras of the fort. So we do have when the Army first gets here, it's really just a camp for about a year, and then they start building adobe buildings from there, and then starting in 1866, finishing in 1868 are the sandstone buildings that you see here today. And then, like you said, 1878, that's when the military says we're not using Fort Larned as an active military post, but we might want to use it for an artillery school. Let's keep it for a little while. And so they didn't abandon it, they didn't sell it, but it was under a guard squad for about 6 years. And they finally sold it at auction, and then it became a ranch for 80 years. And luckily, because of the ranchers, and because they built up and not out, we're able to have a more complete story.
So it was a ranch for 80 years?
80 years. 82, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's to have a ranch for 80 years and not destroy everything.
Yeah.
Like I said, they could have done anything.
Easily.
And we still have, like I said, the original stone buildings and a lot of the original graffiti, plus some.
Yeah.
But which we'll show a couple pictures of that here in a little bit. But that's awesome.
Yeah.
So then, when the fort first started, you said you camp initially, then the adobe buildings. So during the time of the Civil War, if we're going to kind of go through it on a timeline here, what was the fort like during the actual Civil War?
Yeah, so that's well before the sandstone buildings that you see today, and that was when there was adobe buildings. So we had basically combined barracks with quartermaster and commissary. So there's 2 buildings to the north of the existing quadrangle and 2 to the south. And then that's really all that. There was more buildings besides that, but as far as the main military structures, you had the butchers, and you had quartermaster stables and stuff like that. They had staples for any frontier fort.
Right.
But basically, if you're taking the buildings that you see today and sort of transferring the story to the adobe buildings, there's really only 4 main
Gotcha. Now, again, being working on a fair amount of other frontier army posts, one of the questions that we get a lot, I don't know if you do, so I'm kind of curious if you do, was this fort ever stockaded?
Uh-huh.
Where's the walls around here?
We actually have a sign out at the parking lot, and the headline of it is, doesn't every fort have a wall?
Yes. Right.
And we do get that question a lot, was there ever a wall around here? And the simple fact is, for the Plains Indians, it doesn't make sense to attack a fortified position like this. And with our natural defenses here, unlike some other forts where you don't really have, it's not really tucked away into a hill or into a river or anything like that, we do have natural fortifications of the river running on the west and north side, and the Oxbow on the east side. So it really just leaves one viable route for attack. And even then, they knew that it wasn't really under threat of.
Right. Which is the same argument that most of the other frontier forts had for not stockading. In fact, I think stockading is more of the exception than the norm for sure. Fort Phil Kearny comes to mind up in the north, but so when it comes to your favorite stories, just diving into it here, what are some, let's say, top favorite weird, just unique stories of Fort Larned?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. So even though it is only 20 years of stories, and we really only focus on 1868 when the buildings were finished, and sort of the years around that. But there's definitely a lot of stories that are really fun to tell here. A couple of my favorites include rabid wolves. So there's a
rabid wolves.
Yeah, there was a rabid wolf that came on post, and there's a couple different accounts. And if you sort of try to line them up as to where the wolf went when it was here, it just seems like pure chaos.
All right, so what happened to this wolf?
Yeah, so it appeared on post either over there to the southwest or to the south. Basically went around the whole fort. Finally got shot by one of the sentries on guard duty. But it went into one of the officers' quarters and did a number on his dog.
Wow.
Bit an officer on the hand while he was holding another officer's child on his lap. Jumped through the window of the hospital and bit a corporal on the hand, on the right hand.
Wow.
Now that corporal's name is Michael McGillicuddy. Very Irish name.
Yeah.
And knowing Irishman's story at that time, I have to wonder, so he had the option to amputate his hand. But if he doesn't have his right hand, he doesn't have a career in the military. And if he doesn't have his right hand, he probably doesn't have a career anywhere else.
Yeah.
So he risks it, doesn't have it amputated, and he dies a month later. Rabies.
He dies a month later.
Yeah. The officer survived. There's also another account that said that the wolf ran between one of the sentry's legs.
Yeah. So it's going all over the place.
Yeah.
I tell you what, that is a unique story. A rabid wolf.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There was another rabid wolf before the bakery was in the sandstone building that it is now. It was in a dugout. And so there was a rabid wolf, whether it smelled the bread or what, we don't know. But it started to try to get into the bakery. The baker shot it through the door.
Really?
Through the door.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, the baker did.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, was the baker an actual military position, or?
So the bakers here would be from the enlisted men.
Okay.
So
not contracted out.
no. So what they would do is, especially if you have a decent size force, you need to have, or a decent size strength on the post, you need to have a few bakers because you're baking a lot of bread. So what they would do is they would take one man from each company, and they would work over in the bakery. So if you have 3 companies, you have 3 bakers. If you have 4 companies, you have 4 bakers. Or 1 company, you just have 1 baker.
Gotcha.
So, so he was one of the enlisted men, and when you were in the bakery, especially if you're the head baker, you would actually have quarters in the bakery, and that way you could stoke the fire, make sure it keeps running. Because our bake oven here, even though it's built for a 4-company post, and then maybe some who are camping here, it's still a pretty big stove and takes about 3 days to get up to heat, and so you don't want that heat dying down at any time. So if there was a head baker, he would be in charge of stoking the fire throughout the night.
Yeah.
So he would have his own quarters in the bakery, and he would want to take all of his stuff over there, because if he left it over here in the barracks, he probably wouldn't see it again.
No, yeah, he'd be gone. Right.
So he would, and including his rifle, would be over there.
Yeah. So talking about then, having different companies, there was definitely some famous regiments that came through here. What kind of a scope from, for the life of the fort, what were some of the either famous or infamous or the regiments that have gone through here over the years?
So, well, as we're portraying this weekend, General Hancock was here 155 years ago at this time.
Yeah.
With 1,400 men, one of which being the 7th Cavalry led by Custer. So he was here for a total of 4 days. And then we had 3rd Infantry here. Same 3rd Infantry that guards the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier today. We actually portray Company C of the 3rd Infantry as a fort.
Okay.
And that's mainly because we have a picture of them in front of their barracks.
Yeah, which actually we were talking about that is, you kind of said as a joke, but kind of halfway serious, is the reason you portray this certain regiment is mainly because you actually have documentation of them versus any other of the regiments that were here. So talking about primary documents, I mean, from what your research has shown, what you have, you and your coworkers have seen in the National Archives, actually it sounds like that you'll go out and get here in the near future. But how much, primary documentation do you have access to? Are you aware of for this fort?
It's always coming in.
Yeah,
we're always getting new stuff, and that's what's awesome is we have so many dedicated volunteers who really love this fort and the story that we have here. And in fact, one of the volunteers we had today portrays Captain Nolan, the captain of Company A of the 10th Cavalry. She portrays his wife, and so she's always doing research into him. If she finds new documents, she just sends them on to us too.
That's great.
We have a fairly local group that comes out here that portrays Company A, and their captain actually sent on to me. There was a gun broker selling Captain Nolan's converted pistol.
Really?
Converted revolver. So through our friends group, we're able to acquire that, and we'll have that on display hopefully before too long.
That's great.
And we'll actually have their yearly meeting called Mess and Muster is going to focus on Captain Nolan mainly because of that acquisition, and so that's big news for awesome news for us.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it seems like you guys are definitely, you have an active volunteer base. You have an active group of living historians that definitely are passionate about this. And I mean, like I said, having a fort that allows us to do what we're allowed to do here is I'm not going to say unparalleled because there are other locations that kind of do that, but it's not very often. And so if you would describe to our viewers, like what all can we do here as far as we're allowed, like whether it's cooking or have fires in there or have candles. I mean, there's some forts that don't allow you to do anything.
Yeah.
So number one, what are the rules for, say, living historians here, and then why do you allow that?
Yeah, so we have, like you said, basically unparalleled access to quite a bit, and that's another thing that's awesome about these. And what I was telling some of the other guys yesterday too was, if you have a problem, we probably have a tool to fix it somewhere here at the fort.
Yeah, like the blacksmith. I mean, it's a full functional blacksmith shop.
It is.
That's crazy. Yeah. It's not just props, right?
Yeah. No, so it's not just imagine people working here. Like, we can actually make the fort come to life. We sometimes have carpenters come in and do projects in the carpentry shop and stuff like that. But one of the main reasons for that is because it was a ranch.
Yeah.
They changed a lot of the interiors of the buildings. So all of them are reproductions. So the flooring that you have in the barracks isn't the original floor, but from all records that we've found, that's what the floor looked like. We have original parts to the gun racks that were on the wall for the infantry, so we can replicate those. We know what the bunks look like, so we can replicate those. But all of that is reproduction on the inside, so we're able to utilize it and really help make the fort come to life that way.
That's awesome.
And so people have to use less of their imagination in
right.
a way
Right.
to sort of see soldiers shining brass in there or cleaning their gun or just hanging out.
No, that's definitely what drew us to come here, and is the ability of when you said, yeah, you'll sleep in the barracks, we can cook. Well, I mean, we can cook our bread and rations in the actual kitchen. And every now and then you guys actually cook bread in the the main bakery that can hold 300 some loaves of bread.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and of course, I mean, like sleeping them. We had like last night had the furnace running to keep us warm. Even though it was hot today, it was relatively chilly last night.
It was.
So no, again, and that's something that from living historian perspective, we love to be able to do, because most of the time it's, well, here's the original buildings, set your tents on the lawn over here. So yeah, definitely.
No, and about the baker too, that is a volunteer. It's the same volunteer that comes back every Memorial Day weekend.
That's great.
And then we fire up and it goes through a lot of wood in that weekend. Yeah. But he'll bake the bread for all the volunteers that weekend.
That's great. So closing up then, unless you have something else to say, is talk about what we did this weekend. The idea behind it, what prompted us to to actually just schedule it, get it done, and what your goal and objectives were for this weekend.
Yeah. So I think really why we chose this weekend was because it worked for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That's true.
And then in looking at the dates, I realized that it was going to be when Hancock was here. Well, actually, initially I was like, oh, it's around when Hancock was here, and then I looked at the dates closer. I was like, no, that's actually when
he was here.
Hancock was actually here.
Out of the 4-ish days.
Yeah.
That's great.
In this time period.
It worked well, yeah.
So then, really with any living history group that we have come in is just to help them step back in time. Mm-hmm. And then also at the same time, help our visitors experience what it would be like for the fort to be operating. Yeah. So you do have the buildings. You can go in the buildings. You can obviously smell the blacksmith shop, because that's used during the summer. Used almost on a daily basis. So you can smell the coal, and then you can smell some of the leftover scents from some of the other stuff that we've had going on. So you can smell it, you can see it, but then when you add people into it, it just makes it that much more interesting for our visitors. Yeah, and that's really our goal with events like this, is to benefit our visitors, and we really saw that too. Unfortunately, we don't typically get folks to come out from the local community. Yeah. And I think a lot of that is just, okay, I've seen the fort before, it hasn't really changed. Yeah. So why come out? So having these new events to draw those same people back over and over, so they can create that connection with such an awesome place as this.
No, it's definitely an awesome place. So, so we'll end with, what is your favorite aspect of working here? Anything?
Getting to wear the wool and getting paid.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
So so I started my career at Saratoga National Historical Park. Okay. In upstate New York, turning point in the Revolutionary War. Right. I was honestly jealous of the Civil War time period. I now know it was jealousy, because pictures, a lot of people were literate, so you got journals, you name it.
Oh, so you're saying just from a research perspective, Civil War is so much better than Revolutionary War.
And right after these events happened, people started preserving these battlefields, these sites, and started building monuments to these guys. So then once I came here and really started getting into, because honestly I didn't really know much about the Civil War time period when I first started here, but diving into, and then starting my own reenacting group, and diving even further then into the regulations and getting questions that I hadn't even asked myself, and researching those and finding the answer to those. It's really a fun part of the job to be able to pick up the U.S. Army regulations of 1861. And
definitely.
Work on that and try to improve our impression as a fort, and then as a result, those who are coming in, help them experience the garrison life, help them learn the rules and regulations that these guys followed 150 plus years ago.
Sounds awesome. Well, no, we appreciate everything you've done for us. And again, we could talk all day long, but let's go ahead and end it here. And again, please like us on Facebook. Please ring that notification bell on the right-hand side of your screen. And of course, until next time, ride on.